Alright, I'm not gonna act like this really odd, but also for some reason really popular format of video where people rank Smash characters based on very odd criterias, like whether they've driven a car before or whether they've smashed before. Yeah, I'm not gonna explain the premise in too much depth. You've read the video title, you probably know what to expect. What I will tell you is that there is a little twist in this video, kind of. You see, when making most of the videos on this channel, I don't really, at least in the early days, I didn't do a lot of factually true videos. I know you probably threw up listening to that, but like Mario Kart characters based on how well they could drive. There's obviously no factual evidence that I could apply there, not really anyway. It's just pretty much what if I would expect them to drive based on their personalities. If I did that for this video, it'd probably turn out a bit shit, I won't lie. So instead I just sort of jammed those two aspects together and made a hopefully not awkward amalgamation of the two premises. And thus we have 4 tiers to start with, so we'll just go through them. I'll explain them all in depth right now. Canonically has a job, simple enough. They have a job, and they feel like they should have a job. Canonically has a job, but feels like they shouldn't. What this tier means is that they have a job, but I wouldn't really expect them to have a job, whether they're immature, whether they're stupid, lazy, vulgar, whatever. Yeah, that's what that means. Then we've got the same thing, pretty much the same thing. Canonically doesn't have a job but feels like they should. The same thing. They don't have a job, but they sort of feel quite mature and quite sell the aura of someone who would have a job. So it's a big surprise to hear that they actually do not have a job. And then we've got canonically doesn't have a job. Self-explanatory. Anyway, enough waffle. Let's actually, start the list. And for our first fighter, who better to start off with than Mr. Video Game himself, Mario. And I don't think I need to explain to you what Mario does for a living, alright? Even though now that I think about it, we hardly actually see Mario get a lot of plumbing done. The only example I can actually think of from the top of my head is the beginning of 3D World. And I think it's fair to let him off the hook for this one. I mean, look at the poor guy's schedule because of how much responsibilities he has. He's carrying the Mushroom Kingdom on his back. I think he gives off the aroma of maturity, and I'm going to put him in top tier because of this. Donkey Kong. Up until a few months ago, Donkey Kong would have, without a doubt, 100% been going in the bottom tier. Canonically doesn't have a job, but with the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza, they have actually employed him into the position of a miner. I don't know how, I've not played the game, I don't know how long he's a miner for. I don't know, it's probably not a big part of the game, I won't lie to you, but he has a job, he's a miner. That doesn't magically erase the personality and reputation he's gotten himself over the past 30 odd years. So I am still going to put him in canonically has a job, but feels like they shouldn't, because this guy is lazy. He's lazy as shit. I mean, maybe lazy isn't the right word for him. It's just that his one life goal is literally to eat bananas. So I really don't think I have to explain this one. I don't think I have to justify myself here. It's Donkey Kong, man. Link. It's been awfully long since Link had a job, in the events of that game. Canonically speaking, he did have a job in a distant past that was Zelda's appointed knight, and he was pretty damn good at it, to be fair. And as to whether I think he gives off the unemployed aroma, it honestly depends. It depends what Link we're talking about. Are we talking about cutscene Link, or are we talking about gameplay Link? Because cutscene Link is a fucking madman. He's sick. He took down 3 silver Lionels, that in that one cutscene where it shows just the aftermath of his obliteration of just like an army of mobs. But then there's gameplay Link, who's like torturing Koroks for fun. I mean, that's not really canonically what Link is like though, so I guess we talking about cutscene Link. Yeah, let's put him in canonically has a job. He does give off the mature vibes. Samus is a bounty hunter. That's all I can really say about her. I can't really waffle that much about Samus, as I've never gone near a Metroid game, but from what I vaguely know, she seems to have her life somewhat in order. Maybe not in order, but she seems to have herself pretty sorted out. She seems quite mature, she's professional. I'm just gonna stop waffling about Samus. She canonically has a job, okay? Dark Samus, however, is definitely unemployed. Dark Samus isn't even a person. She's some sort of, or it's some sort of apparitional alien thing. I don't fucking know. And she's one of those villains, you know, the Darkling-esque villains. So she doesn't have a job. I'm pretty sure she's just, again, the typical evil doppelganger character like Link, just a blank slate. I guess she's an alien, and I've never really seen aliens who have jobs, so you can go in there. Oh, Yoshi. So Yoshi is obviously unemployed, and I like to headcanon Yoshi, like in all of these sorts of videos. I always headcanon Yoshi as just being a complete failure in most regards, not in like a depressing way, just like he's like tax evader and a bum. So I'm just gonna put him in bottom tier and hope people can see where I'm coming from with this. Kirby, same case as Yoshi. Unemployed, obviously. He doesn't have a job. He's lazy. He's a glutton, which I'm going to correlate to being lazy, especially when he doesn't even have to move his mouth or move his body to eat. He's evolved into just minimal movement to eat food. I'm definitely going to say he's a bottom tier for this one. Fox. Fox is a fighter pilot slash terrorist, and this is another franchise I haven't really touched outside of my last video. I do, however, know a bit about Fox's personality, at least from the subspace emissary, because I did play that, and the cutscenes are just incredible. And I don't even know if it's a canon representation of the characters' personalities, but I am going to count it because, God, there is some gold in that story mode that I just can't let go. I just can't let go down the drain. Fox is just such a tsundere. He's not even a tsundere. He never shows his like soft side. He's just such a mood the entire time, you know, when he's being dragged by Diddy Kong, doesn't want to help him and shit. Fox is definitely in top tier. He has a job, obviously, and he just gives off that feeling of professionalism for pretty much the entirety of the subspace emissary. Pikachu. Most Pokemon on the list were pretty hard. No, not hard. Pretty easy to rank because most Pokemon have the same role to fulfill. Pikachu is actually the exception of that because Detective Pikachu exists. I've never played the game. I can't really speak much on it. I'm gonna put him in the canonically has a job tier but doesn't act like it, which I don't think I need to justify. I mean, he's an animal, and I realize that doesn't account for much. I mean, look at Fox, who we just ranked, but Fox is more like a human in a fursuit. Luigi. Where's Luigi on my fucking... Sorry, I realize I have to put all the Pokemon in fucking bottom tier now. Alright, let's find them all. Jigglypuff, Mewtwo, Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Charmander, Greninja, Incineroar, and I think that's all the Pokemon. Like Mario, I'm pretty sure it's universal knowledge that Luigi is also a plumber. And I'm just gonna put Luigi in the top tier as well as Mario, for a very different reason though. With Mario, it was the professionalism he gave off. We all know Luigi, that's not Luigi's strong suit exactly. He doesn't scream professionalism. With Luigi, I think it's more the fact that he seems to live a very more casual life than Mario and pretty much everyone else in the Mushroom Kingdom. He tries to stay far away from all that bullshit. And the only times he does get involved is, I mean, most of the time it's against his will, let's be honest. Like Superstar Saga, he was just fucking dragged into that game against his will. I think I don't have to explain myself anymore than Luigi here. Ness. Okay, Ness is a child. Any child will probably just go in bottom tier. They were all pretty easy to rank like the Pokemon because they obviously wouldn't have jobs and you wouldn't expect them to either. Captain Falcon. Captain Falcon has a fairly impressive portfolio here. He's held not 2 but 3 jobs. One as a police officer, bounty hunter, and F-Zero pilot. I've never played an F-Zero game, mostly because an F-Zero game hasn't come out in like the past 30 years. So yeah, he's been kind of neglected. He's kind of neglected by Nintendo, but nevertheless, he has still had a pretty impressive career, so I am happy putting him in top tier. Peach. Here's the thing, Peach marks the beginning of possibly the worst genre of people to rank in this video, that being any type of royalty. And I say that because there is a lot of differences between what passes as being a king or queen or princess in all the verses in Super Smash Bros. And as you'd imagine, there's not much of a criteria in the Mario verse. You might think this is just filler talk, but it's genuinely not, because it was a genuine issue. It was the biggest issue when writing this video, when trying to determine where you draw the line between a genuine position of royalty and someone with no actual royal heritage and just calls themselves a king because it sounds cool. That being said, Peach does fall under the criteria for being a position of royalty because she did have parents who ruled the throne before her, and she does have responsibilities that she, albeit neglects pretty much most her reign. But we're not here to judge how good she is at a job, we're here to judge whether she has a job. I am naturally going to put her in the fields like she shouldn't do because she is god awful at this position. She is just a massive failure as a princess. Peach was not nice to talk about. Let's move on to Bowser. I'm convinced Bowser's title as King of Koopas is nothing more than exactly that, a title, because one, he unfortunately doesn't have the luxury Peach did of having parents, or at least having parents that ruled the throne before him. But I mean, there's that, and the fact that his actual objectives that he aims to achieve are nothing like that of a typical king's objectives. He's literally just a Mario hater. He's still miles more successful than Peach. Yeah, he belongs here. Canonically doesn't have a job, but feels like he should because he puts 101% into this job, and you know, he would be very successful if he actually had it. Anyway, Daisy. Funny thing about Daisy, I was so prepared to put her in the bottom tier. Just because I didn't really want to research Daisy. She gets like no screen time in mainline Mario games. She's only really a Mario Party, Mario Kart character. I was just assuming she had no lore about her. But I'm also not stupid enough to risk getting my ear chewed off about getting any of this wrong. So I did muscle up the energy, and it led me to some very weird places that I'm afraid I won't ever be able to come back from. None of which I'll burden you with because in the end, none of it was useful information. The closest we got to her being a real princess was the fact that her father, who is only ever mentioned twice in any piece of media, mind you, might be rich, which I dug up from possibly one of the most bootleg looking games I've ever seen, Fortune Street. That's all you're getting from me about Daisy's father. The wiki says he's a king, but I don't really know how they got that information because, I mean, again, there's no info that actually says that canonically, so I don't really feel comfortable drawing the same conclusion, considering there's only 2 mentions of this guy in anything ever, and none of them ever actually state he's a king. Safe to say, Daisy goes in bottom tier. And the last thing I want to talk about right now is the fucking ice climbers, man, but you know, here we are. I'll make this quick for all of us. The ice climbers are pioneer mountaineers. These are people who just make significant accomplishments when climbing new mountains, like establishing new routes or making it to the top of a mountain so they can go. Apparently that's a job. I was a bit doubtful that that was even a job, but you know, apparently it is a job. I guess we'll put them in canonically has a job but feels like they shouldn't because they do look like children here. We've got Sheik and Zelda. I'm literally just gonna... Zelda is a genuine princess. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone. In most games she has a dad that ruled the throne before her, as well as genuine princess duties, unlike Princess Peach over there. She actually does have like shit to do, and she genuinely does provide for her kingdom. She's not just a complete failure, in other words. She's an adequate princess, so I'm gonna put her in canonically has a job. Falco, same case as Fox, he's a fighter pilot, and again in the Subspace Emissary they literally have the exact same personality. Oh shit, got the Fire Emblem characters. Alright, so for the Fire Emblem characters, I won't lie, I know nothing about these characters. I went to the effort of researching what their jobs are, but beyond that, I'll just put it bluntly, I have no interest in learning about these guys. So yeah, sorry, Fire Emblem fans. Marth is a prince and Lucina is a princess. Young Link. So while he's definitely quite mature for his age, considering he was literally forced to become an adult, he was forced to save the world at like 10 years old, then forced to become an adult, but he doesn't have a job in the traditional sense. He has a role, and I did sort of debate it with myself whether I'd count what he does as a job, but if we were counting roles, then so many of these people would just go automatically in top tier. But we're not counting roles, we're counting if he's genuinely employed, if he's canonically been employed into a role, and he was not employed into saving the world. That's just something he had to do. He is still probably more mature than 90% of the roster, So it does really feel odd putting him in the bottom tier, but I'm still gonna happily put him in the bottom tier, because if we don't make an exception for people like Ness, then I guess we can't for Young Link. Ganondorf. This is presumably the Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time, which is the same Ganondorf who had enough clout to kneel before the King of Hyrule towards the very beginning of the game. So this sort of implies that his title of King of Gerudo is a bit more than just some hollow self-proclaimed title. Obviously, I still had to do some research into him. So I decided to do a bit of research on his parents. And then I remembered in Zelda lore that there's only a male born once every 100 years. I just knew that anyway. So Ganon is the only male in the last 100 years in the Gerudo timeline, in Ocarina of Time anyway. And then that sort of brought upon the question, who are his parents? Because he surely can't have a dad, because the previous male would be too old and decrepit to... Yeah, I'm not gonna go into that. Fucking don't even envision that. And then I started to wonder, how do Gerudos even reproduce? Because surely one man can't be doing all of that. This is so grim, man. I don't want to talk about this. I soon realized I'm not sure I want to find out this stuff. I stopped my research there. I just decided to research who are Ganon's parents. And apparently he was birthed by these witch twin sisters, Home and Kotake. I don't know if I said that right. But yeah, they're witch sisters who I assume made him magically. And they previously ruled over the Gerudo themselves. I didn't really get much more than that. I don't think there's a lot of lore on them really. But that's really all we need. He was birthed by two twin sisters, so they're technically his parents, and they ruled the Gerudo before him. I think that's pretty compelling evidence. So I decided that it's probably for the best that I stop my research here. Ganon's parents were queens before him, meaning that he is technically the king. Top tier you go. We've got Roy and Chrom. They both have jobs. Chrom is the prince and ruler, very just obviously top tier. And Roy is a marquis, which is a position of royalty that doesn't quite scale to the levels of a prince or even a duke, but it is still a position of royalty. However, Roy is only 15 years old during the events of Fire Emblem Binding Blade, so he is technically a child. However, I think positions of royalty should be the exception of this rule, considering the youngest king in history in real life was only 8 months old. And now would be a good time to know that I am considering people who are children as people who are 15 and below, because the legal working age in the UK at least is 16. I won't blame all you Fire Emblem fans if you're banging your head into a wall right now, because I don't really know what I'm talking about with Roy, but it's been a while as well, and I've literally put nothing on his script as well, so I have nothing to go off of. I'm just going off very vague memories or very vague research I did a few weeks ago. And I think that was enough for me, to be honest. He's also a warrior, if you wanted to argue that, so that's sort of a job as well. Mr. Game & Watch. This guy is like the Chuck Norris of jobs. If you've ever played or even just know anything about the Game & Watch games, you probably know what I'm talking about with this. Mr. Game & Watch, all the mini games in those sort of games, well, a lot of them anyway, are just like mini jobs that you have to do. So like some of these consist of firefighting, juggling, judging, being a greenhouse worker, being a chef, being a skydiver, being a submariner, a gas station worker, and an exterminator. I don't know if there's any more than that. But that's all I could really find on the internet. But yeah, this guy has a lot of fucking jobs. So he definitely gives off the aura. So I'm gonna go one step further with Mr. Game & Watch. With me, we're gonna make him his own tier. Chuck Norris of jobs. There you are. He's the ultimate ruler in this sort of tier list. There we go. Well done, Mr. Game & Watch. YouTube videos they hurt your voice, man. Alright, we've got Meta Knight. Meta Knight, I'd probably put him in like the top 10, probably top 5 hardest people to research when making this video, because he was very on the line between what I would consider technically a job and what I wouldn't consider a job. And it was also just Kirby lore. I don't really know a lot about Kirby lore, so that was also a hindrance to me. I won't blame you if a lot of you disagree with this run of Meta Knight, because he was, again, very hard to rank. So I'll just say what I can about him. He's the leader of the Meta Knights, which is his army. As well, he's worked for King Dedede's army as well on multiple occasions. So I'm going to be so real with you. I've got an entire essay prepared for this part about moral dilemmas and made up scenarios, so just prepare yourself. If you want to understand what I'm saying here, then you've got to recognize that I recognize that there's a lot of inconsistencies with what I'm saying here, and a lot of my argument is just based off interpretation because there is no factual evidence here. But I am considering what Meta Knight does as a job, because the Meta Knights have helped save Dreamland on multiple occasions, and roles like this would justifiably exist in the real world if it was necessary, because he is making a big and helpful difference. And even when he is being quote unquote evil, his actual goals aren't even that malicious. They're actually pretty innocent. He just wants to take over Dreamland to make the entire population less lazy. And to be fair, they are very lazy. And hypothetically speaking, because this is a scenario that would never happen in the real world, which is another thing that makes this so hard to rank, but hypothetically speaking, if the entire population was incompetently lazy, then would you consider being part of the group that aims to make that population less lazy a job or not? It's a much harder debate than Bowser's, because it's a massive dilemma of morals and probably other things, as well as being a role you could genuinely see existing in a different world. But I've already stated that roles don't count, but that's the thing, this isn't just a role. He has his own army that he is the leader of, which can be considered a job. But wait a second, Bowser had his own army, and yet we're saying that he doesn't have a job because of the unofficial nature of it, which could also be applied to Meta Knight's job and his army. Do you see why he's such a nightmare to rank now? We could do this forever, but linking back to what I said at the beginning, it's entirely interpretation based. In conclusion, I'm saying he has a job, and you can debate that to your heart's content in the comments. We've got Pit. Pit leads Palutena's army. He's a general, and I cannot imagine Pit doing anything else other than devoting himself to Palutena. In other words, I don't think he could have any other job other than what he's doing right now. Like, if he was just a normal person, I have no envisionment of what his life would be like. I am going to say he has a job because he does have a job, but he also feels like he shouldn't have a job. Now we got Dark Pit, who was a bit more complex than Pit because he works under Viridi as an officer for the Forces of Nature. The Forces of Nature's role and aims are to preserve nature, preserve the natural order, and that is by annihilating humanity. And to be fair, the motive isn't completely nonsensical, which is being to protect the planet from humanity. And as we all know ourselves, we don't exactly have the best impact on the environment. They've got a goal, and their goal isn't all that horrible. There's more use for it than Bowser's role. Bowser's just the baseline now, by the way. Bowser, his goals were just for recreation. They're actually trying to do something useful. And the methods, I mean, annihilating humanity obviously probably doesn't sound all that appealing to us, but there's a bit more purpose behind what they do. So I'm going to put him slightly reluctantly in the same tier as Pit. There's also the fact that I don't know what Dark Pit even does for the Forces of Nature. It was only revealed that he was part of the Forces of Nature now in Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U in Palutena's guidance, and there's even debate whether that's even canon. So yeah, I'm going to put him here because, again, the Forces of Nature, somewhat of a useful and well-intended goal there. I guess Dark Pit is a part of that, so he goes here. I don't know, man. I feel like I kind of lost a few people there. Wario, to my bafflement, does have a job. He's nothing to scoff at either. This man owns his own company. He sells microgames, which are pretty much just like small mini games, a bit like arcade machines, I guess. That's what I've got anyway. And this isn't some local small-time business either. It earned him enough to buy a castle, which compared to the rest of the Mario cast isn't really saying a lot. Like, most of them just fucking have castles sitting away. Mario has a castle that's only shown in one game. So this guy's business, WarioWare, he's got him pretty damn wealthy. I'm still obviously gonna put him in feels like he shouldn't have a job because, I mean, come on. Him and Waluigi just scream up unemployment. They're just petty, vulgar, childish losers who do nothing but terrorize, and I don't really think I need to justify this choice anymore, to be honest. Snake, okay. To be precise, Snake is a special operation soldier. And this guy personalities in Smash, at least Subspace Emissary, we're bringing it back again as another source of info, it makes him out to be a lot more goofy than he really is. Like, just look at the cutscene with him and Lucario. Lucario just lifting his box, and then he just like takes a full 2 seconds to respond to it. Yeah, it makes him out to be more goofy, but in reality, this guy is pretty well put together, so I'm gonna put him in top tier. Ike is, I think, the only, if not one of the only, characters from Fire Emblem on this list to not actually be part of a royal family. He's a mercenary, like a fighter, therefore I am going to put him in top tier again, like the other ones. I might add like an epilogue to this video, because I do sort of feel like I've shafted the Fire Emblem characters here. Pokemon Trainer. I had an entire section on this guy in the last video about this very subject, about whether or not I call being a Pokemon trainer a job. I drew the conclusion that it was more of a hobby or a lifestyle rather than a position of employment, because it's not like they've been employed to do what they do. It's just something they go off to do on their own. It's a hobby, like I just said, and the money they get is either from beating wild Pokemon or beating other Pokemon trainers, and I don't even know if that's canonical money they make or just a gameplay mechanic. And he's a child, so canonically doesn't have a job. Diddy Kong. This guy can just go in fucking, no, wait, he can't go in Donkey Kong's tier because he doesn't have a job. I'm just not gonna beat around the bush with it on Diddy Kong. He's an ape, he doesn't have a job, he's unemployed, doesn't have a job, doesn't feel like he should have a job. Lucas, same as Ness, he's a child, bottom tier. I don't think there's a character who'd be more unfitting to have a job on this list than Sonic, the epitome of free will, so he is definitely going into this bottom tier. King DDD. Funny fact about King DDD. When searching up about all the royal characters in this video, this guy is so pathetic that even Google Gemini calls him out on his bullshit, calling him a self-proclaimed king. This is something that it did for none of the other royal characters on this list. Just King DDD was the one to get the title of self-proclaimed king. Olimar. I learned what Olimar's. Oh wait, Lucario. What are you doing here? Oh yeah. Yeah. Olimar. If you don't know what Olimar does, he works at a business called Hocotate Freights. And if you want to know what Hocotate Freights does, they travel between the planet of Hocotate and planet Earth. They collect bottle caps and bring them back to Hocotate Freights because apparently they're incredibly valuable there. As well, it's the only thing they can really carry. It's the only thing small enough for them to carry back to Earth. I don't know a lot about Olimar. What I do know is that he's very articulate in his journal writing. I know he has quite an expanded vocabulary, and he knows his way around planet Earth. And I say this because Earth in Pikmin is described as a hostile planet to Hocotatians. So yeah, I'm gonna put him in top tier. Rob isn't even a character. Rob is some random ass accessory to the NES, a console that came out over 40 years ago. I don't even know why this guy's in the game. Obviously doesn't have a job. Again, not a character. We'll just put you in bottom tier, I guess. Toon Link is a similar case to Young Link. His thing isn't really a job. It's a role, so he can go in this bottom tier again. Wolf does have a job. Wolf works under Andros. Yeah, I'm definitely going to put him in this top tier. Canonically has a job. I think the only thing that lands you in this tier is if you're either immature, vulgar, or just bad at your job, like in Peach's case, like just really fucking terrible at what you do. That's the only thing that's going to land you in. Canonically has a job but feels like he shouldn't. I don't think Wolf falls under any of that. He seems pretty well put together, but you know, he can definitely land in this tier. I think he can get away with that. Villager, I mean, it depends what iteration we're talking of. I presume we're talking about either New Horizons, or maybe we're just talking about every single version of Villager across any Animal Crossing game, just counting all versions. I'm going to assume we are, because that makes my job a lot easier. He was an island representative in New Horizons, and he was a mayor in New Leaf. I mean, I won't lie, the requirements he had to meet for this job are really limited, like nothing at all. He literally came to the fucking to the city. They just told him he was the mayor and he was like, all right, bet. It's not even like he did a lot in this position anyway. New Leaf's gameplay is just catching bugs and fishing and chopping trees down and just having fun. A bit like every Animal Crossing game, but it definitely feels like he shouldn't have a job because, again, what he did under this role was very unmale-like. Isabelle heavily carries him in this position. Mega Man, he's a robot who was built by Dr. Wily. Protects humanity. You could argue that he's hired by Dr. Wily to like protect humanity, and you could argue that he's been employed for that. I don't think that really counts. And he's a robot as well. And he kind of looks like a child. I think we're kind of pushing it now, though. Wii Fit Trainer. Things get a bit complicated with Wii Fit Trainer because it gets a bit meta, if anything, because the Wii Fit Trainer is like a fourth wall breaking entity. They talk directly to you. They're training you. At this point, they're not just they don't have their own canonical verse. They're like part of our verse. It gets a bit hard here because she does have a role, and you could also say it's a job, but she also wasn't employed by anyone and she's not getting paid canonically. This is just her life goal. She was just literally made for this. I think the best tip for her is canonically doesn't have a job but feels like she should, because she's a personal trainer. She feels like that's a job, so she feels like she should have a job, but technically it's not a job. That's just the point of the game. And my brain's gonna explode if I talk about her anymore. I'm just moving on. Rosalina and Luma, another one of these characters who falls under the has a role but not really a job category. She's the observer / protector of the universe. Again, that's quite a heavy weight on her shoulders, so definitely feels like she should have a job, but it's technically not a job. Yes, it doesn't have a job, but feels like they should. Not a traditional job anyway. She's quite mature, obviously being thousands of years old. And there's a big weight on her shoulders. She has a lot of responsibilities, so I think she's perfect in this tier. Little Mac. Little Mac is a boxer. Surprise, surprise. He's a boxer, so I would put him in canonically has a job. But there's also the fact that he's 17. He shouldn't even be a boxer. He shouldn't be boxing all these people. He's a child still. Fuck yeah, I'm putting him down here. He is illegally fighting in this field. The Mii fighters are just really, I don't even know how I'd rank them. You know what, I'm gonna add I've made a new tier where it's for characters who have multiple types of characters, because there's not one Mii. Mii is just an avatar that you can make anyone with. Polytena. Yeah, she's the goddess of light and the protector of humanity. None of those are jobs. It's like Rosalina. She has responsibilities, she has a heavy weight on her shoulder, she's mature, but you know, it's technically not a job. Pac-Man just eats shit, so I'm just gonna put him in. Like, Pac-Man is the easiest one to rank because there's no character. He's literally like 7 pixels on his screen, and his only objective and the only thing he's ever done is just eat pellets. So very easy here. Canonically doesn't have a job. Robin. I believe he or she is a battle tactician. You can change it because Fire Emblem is a game where you can change the roles of your characters, but I just assume that the role they're given at the beginning of the game is their canonical role. So yeah, she or he is a battle tactician. It also states that she or he works in an army, so I'm just going to put him in canonically has a job. Shulk is an engineer and weapon scientist. He works with weapons. We get into this point in the video where the script is getting really fucking vague with what, I don't know why I've done this to myself, but the script is, at this point, it just tells me what their jobs are. There's nothing more to go off of. So I'm just sort of fucking nose diving into everything here. Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. is a child. He's the Prince of Koopas, but again, that title means fuck all because his dad isn't actually a king. Admittedly, he's very smart. Very, very intelligent, proven by Super Mario Sunshine, but that is all completely undermined when you take into account that he's a child, and that just rules over anything as a reason to put someone in this bottom tier. So unfortunately, if he was just a bit older, he'd definitely go in. Feels like they should have a job because he works with weapons and shit. His plans are a lot more articulated and just thought out than Bowser's, which is just, you know, just using brute strength. So it kind of hurts putting him in this bottom tier because of how smart he is, but you know, sorry Bowser Jr., you're a baby, man. And then we got Duck Hunt Duo. This is like 3 characters. This is the dog and the duck who don't have jobs, obviously. And then there's the hunter, He was a hunter. Multiple, I guess they'd go under this tier, I guess. Multiple characters can't rank. I had to like research a lot of what is this Street Fighter lore, and Ken's life is really goddamn depressing. I think he got accused of a crime he didn't commit. He goes on the run, he loses his money, he loses his family business. A lot of horrible shit happens to Ken. He had a job at one point. I think he lost it because of some like scandal, but yeah, he did run a family business which was like running hotels and shit. So he did once have a job, and just out of pity, I think I'm going to put Ken in this top tier. And Ryu's case is a lot more simple. He's a world-class fighter who competes in tournaments and earns a lot of money. So, I mean, this is pretty much his whole life, so he's definitely got the dedication part. So I will, like Ken, put him in top tier. Cloud Strike. Cloud is a merc, as Barrett says. He's a merc. He's a mercenary. People just hire him for odd jobs. Like at the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, he's hired by that main group to bust into one of the Mako reactors and just take out all the guards for them on the way. Top tier. Bayonetta. Bayonetta has a day and night job. In the day, she works as a nun, and at night she works as an Umbra Witch, which is just like some sort of, I don't know, it doesn't matter because it's not a real job at the end of the day, but she does work as a nun, so canonically has a job. Inkling, another one of these characters in the multiple characters, because there isn't one Inkling. If you ever played a Splatoon game and gone into the Splatoon Plaza, you'll know that there's so many Inklings, so surely they all have different personalities. So I'm sure some Inklings are unemployed, and I'm sure some are employed. Ridley genuinely does have a job. Leader of Space Pirates. I'm gonna put him in, canonically has a job, but feels like they shouldn't because he is an animal. He's like a beast. Again, another character here I was just immediately gonna put him bottom tier. The Belmonts. So these are vampire hunters. Bit ambiguous whether this is a job or not. It feels like more of a role, if anything. It gets to the point where if I put these in the top tier, I'd also have to put Rosalina and Paul Lieutenant in the top tier because their roles are useful. Their roles have a use to the earth, but it's still like not a job technically. They weren't employed. I think they just do this because they sort of feel that it's their duty to. They're undoubtedly providing a useful service to the world by slaying vampires, but it's technically not a job. So I'm going to put him in canonically doesn't have a job, but feels like they should. King K. Rool. He's a thief. So no, he's a like similar case to Bowser, except he doesn't have the accomplishments that Bowser has for it. Although, no, he does have that entire like fuck-ass island that you can just drive around, by the way. I don't know enough about him to put him in this tier, so I'm just going to keep him down here. Isabelle. Isabelle is probably the true mayor of these games. She's slaving away at the desk 24/7. She never steps outside that building in New Horizons, and I don't think she does in New Leaf either. So yeah, I'm definitely going to put her in. Canonically has a job. Piranha Plant, I mean, you could argue that they're employed under like Bowser's army. I don't even know these are part of Bowser's army or if they're just natural beasts. It's a plant. We've seen they grow anywhere as well, like in 3D worlds where Bowser doesn't rule that kingdom. He doesn't rule the kingdom in 3D world, and yet there's piranha plants just doing their own thing. They weren't employed by Bowser, and yet they're still fulfilling the same role as they do in any other Mario game, that is attacking the player. So yeah, I feel like canonically doesn't have a job as well for these. Joker. So in Persona 5, Joker can have multiple part-time jobs. Just to name a few off the top of my head, can work at a bar, movie / cafe store, flower shop, and I think there's one or two more, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. I don't know if he canonically does, but the fact that you canonically can, I think is enough for me. So I'm going to say canonically has a job. Hero is literally a hero. Hero's job is to be a hero. He's employed by the king to be a hero, to save the world, to destroy dragons, which I think is enough for me to say that that is a job. He's hired by someone. Banjo and Kazooie. No. Just fucking put no. I know the plot is to save your sister, so yeah, I'm just gonna put him down there, make it easy for myself. Terry Bogard, he's like Ryu. It's pretty much the same position. He goes around the world. His aim is to be the best martial artist, win tournaments. He also does small jobs to get by. I think I'm gonna put him in canonically does have a job. Byleth. Oh, Byleth is a professor at some sort of school / university. Yeah, and another Fire Emblem character I have nothing to say it's about, but in top tier. Min Min works at her Nintendo Noodle House. And it is also stated that her main motive for being a fighter is to promote a family business, which sort of implies that working at this noodle store may actually come before her fighting career. It definitely insinuates that she's dedicated to her job. I mean, she became a world-class fighter to promote her family business, so she's definitely going in top tier. Steve. Firstly, Steve is not a canonical character. He's just the player. And the only argument I could make for Steve actually having a job is being a trader, because that's the only thing that can actually make you emeralds, which is the currency in Minecraft. Well, that and mining, but the amount of emeralds you actually find when mining is so scarce that I'm not even going to count it. I think the best tier for Steve, though, is multiple characters can't rank, because the only canonical thing I'd say Steve ever did is beat the Ender Dragon, so I think this is the tier for him. Sephiroth. Current Sephiroth is like kind of crashing out. Like, his current goal is to destroy the world. But before he started crashing out on everyone, he was a first-class soldier. I think even above that, potentially. He was like the best of the best. Canonically has a job and feels like they should. Pyra and Mithra, they're unemployed. They were in a blade for however many years. They don't have jobs. As for whether I feel like they should have jobs, Pyra is like a lot more shy. I'm gonna leave her down here. Mithra is a lot more assertive, so I'm gonna put her up there. Kazuya works at, no, not works at, he's the CEO of a company called Mishima Zaibatsu, and it is the sponsor for tournaments that you have in the Tekken games. So yeah, has a job. Sora, no, he doesn't have a job. He's a child, so I'm gonna put him down there. And there we have it. There is, oh, it doesn't fit on the entire screen. It almost does, but there we have it. There is our list. All in all, this was about the result I was expecting. Nothing too out of the ordinary, no real discrepancies. I mean, I was expecting a pretty balanced approach. If you want the exact numbers, then all in all, 47 of the characters had jobs and 38 did not. Anyway, that is all for this video, and until next time.